There are certain lines that I want to hear when a president speaks, like, government's too big. And politicians often say exactly that.
The federal government is too big and it spends too much money.
The audience applauds, but unfortunately, though they applaud and say that, once they get elected, they go on to spend even more. But President Obama won't even say that big government's a problem. It's doubled in size since President Clinton. Does any politician who promises to cut actually cut government? Yes, one did, and he's running for president, and here he is. Governor Gary Johnson, former governor of New Mexico. As governor, he cut spending growth in half and cut the number of state employees by 1,000. I thought that would appeal to Republican voters, but you've now given up on the Republican primaries. You're running as a Libertarian. Why didn't that appeal to people?
Well, you know, it's about a message, and I think it does appeal to people, and I think that for the most part, Ron Paul and I are delivering the same message.
Yeah, but he resonates, and you dropped out. How come?
Well, I don't think Ron Paul's going to end up winning the Republican nomination, and so this has always been about the message, and it's an opportunity to continue to talk about this agenda that is going to die when Ron Paul doesn't get that nomination. Now, that's just my guess. That's just my projection.
And there have been some polls where they say, what if it's Obama against Romney, and against you, you get 9% of the vote, which is more than most people would get. But then it seems, well, I'll let you react to that.
Well, first of all, I think that anybody running as a third party right now is going to poll at that kind of a level. What's exciting to me is, and by the way, I am not the nominee, I'm running for the nomination, but the Libertarian nominee may end up polling at 15% and potentially be on the national debate stage with Obama, and I'm going to project that Romney's going to end up being the eventual Republican nominee.
And what good is it getting 15% of the vote as a third party?
That you would actually be able to talk about this agenda and get it to resonate and potentially change the world a little bit by having the other candidates embrace what I think is really very, very populist. The notion of balancing the federal budget, a $1.4 trillion reduction in federal spending year one. That's something that I'm promising to submit to Congress. But, you know, the talk tonight was $2 trillion reduction. But that's so misleading. It's so misleading because it's a $10 trillion increase that's going to be reduced by $2 trillion over a 10-year period. So really, we're not talking about reduced spending.
I think it's actually $9 trillion. It says, we've agreed to cut $2 trillion off the future deficit. But it was going to increase by $9 trillion. Now it'll increase by $7 trillion.
And I don't know exactly what that time period is.
10 years.
But I'm believing that we're on the verge of a monetary collapse, and unless we actually address this, we're going to find ourselves in the midst of that monetary collapse where we're going to end up with nothing.
But Obama didn't really mention the big four: defense, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security.
He dedicated 3 sentences to entitlements, and the big 3 really are Medicaid, Medicare, and military spending, and each one of those need to be reduced by 43%. When I talk about military spending, I think that's the biggest threat to our national security, is the fact that we continue to borrow and print money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we spend.
Now, other lines that sound good. It's time to apply the same rules from top to bottom, said the president. No bailouts, no handouts, no cop-outs.
And then he follows that up with what he talks about are bailouts and just everything. So it goes from one to another. You know, the financial institutions. He talked about a trade enforcement unit. Look, I think the answer to that is the fair tax. I mean, make us downright competitive, do away with corporate tax, arguably make our goods and services 23% more competitive. I think issues were really put on the back burner tonight. Financial crimes. Look, I think the lawyers and courts
do smart regulations to prevent irresponsible behavior, rules to prevent financial fraud. So apparently Dodd-Frank, and that's how thick it is, isn't enough. We need more.
You know, the outrage over the bailouts is that these people that made these decisions should have been allowed to fail. They should have failed. I think they much rather would have gone to prison than to have lost all their money. And of course, they didn't lose all their money. They were bailed out, and now they're receiving bonuses. I just share in the outrage that this country is for sale, and both parties are selling it. Both parties have their hands out to grant those special loopholes,
and both parties argued we have to bail them out or there'll be worldwide financial catastrophe.
And you know, all those free market economists that I talked to said that there wouldn't have been any system failure, and that they should have been rewarded for their bad decision making by being allowed to fail. This is America. Why is it capitalism on the way up and communism on the way down?
Another thing he said that sounded good, I believe what Republican Abraham Lincoln believed, that government should do for people only when they cannot do better by themselves.
So government doesn't need to do anything. He said it right there. Is there anything that you and I as individuals can't do that government can do better? I can't think of a single thing.
How about defending ourselves from a foreign attack?
Well, so that is the fundamental role of government, is to provide protections from you and I against bad actors, whether they be individuals, whether they be corporations.
There are some things that government, we do need. Libertarians agree we need government for stuff like that.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Gary.